I am a huge fan of puzzles and puzzle games. I know video games are supposed to be a leisurely activity you play to unwind, but for some reason, nothing gets my dopamine pumping like completing a puzzle in a game. Today, the puzzle game I want to talk about is Picross, which has been an all-time favorite of mine since it released back on the Nintendo DS. It's similar to Sudoku in that there's a grid of squares that need to be filled in. However, instead of numbers, you fill in a sequence of blocks based on the numbers at the top of each row and column. It's a simple enough premise, but given few enough numbers and a large enough puzzle grid, these things can be real tough to work through. Now, the king of Picross has to be the Jupiter Corporation. They've been responsible for most of the Picross games that end up on Nintendo consoles, and their most recent game, Picross S4, just released. Now, while I've only just scratched the surface of this game, I'm confident in recommending it and any of their previous games to anyone. There's a ton of puzzles in both regular and Mega Picross modes, which merges two rows of columns clues together. There's also a small selection of color Picross puzzles which I enjoy, but find can be easier given the color requirements actually make some solutions pretty obvious. That said, if all you want is a solid Picross game with a large number of puzzles to work your way through, look no further than any of the Jupiter Picross S games. For $10 a piece, they are beyond worth it. 5 out of 5, absolutely, as far as scratching that puzzle itch goes. What if you do want more to your puzzle game? What if you want not just puzzles, but a game with a story? First, what's wrong with you? But second, it seems you're in luck, because it seems like this is something that's been happening more and more often where these Picross games are coming out with stories wrapped around them. Today I want to look at two such games, both on the Nintendo Switch, Pictoquest and Murder by Numbers. Starting with Pictoquest, it's kind of the simpler of the two games. It is essentially just a Picross game with a nice little overworld in place of the standard puzzle menu, and a few little RPG gimmicks that are added to the puzzle solving. Most puzzles have creatures that will attack you over time, and you have a limited amount of health. If you run out, you fail the puzzle. Completely solving a row or column will delay their attack, which actually adds a cool level of tension to puzzle solving. Now, in most cases, the enemy took too long to attack that I never really felt like I was in danger of failing a puzzle, but especially if you're newer to this genre of puzzle, it may actually be something that you run into. Now, the game also lets you buy items that you can use during a puzzle to freeze enemies, so to slow their attack down further, or reveal an entire row and column on the board. I'm personally not a fan of this type of thing, as I'm not one to use hints of any kind when solving these types of puzzles. Now, I went into the game thinking that I'd be fine, I just wouldn't use these kinds of items. However, Pictoquest lacks a feature that, in my eyes, is a requirement for these kinds of puzzle games, and that is the ability to mark potential squares. Pictoquest can have some really sparse puzzles, and normally when you encounter this kind of a puzzle where it's not clear which squares to fill in, you would mark some potential ones and carry forward, because it'll usually take a few more before you find out whether your initial guess was right or not. So without that feature, it makes it really hard not to use the items in the game, and for me, when I used the items, I felt like I was cheating both myself and the puzzle. Now, on top of that, there's no way to turn off auto error checking in this game. If you hit the wrong square, if you fill in the wrong square, it will immediately tell you and do some damage to your character. Again, on the RPG side of things, that's an interesting little feature. However, again, as somebody who doesn't like being told when I make a mistake, I like trying to figure out where I went wrong on my own, it bothered me. Because of these two things, I gave up on the game. I didn't finish it. But that said, if you're a more casual puzzle fan, if you don't mind some of those limitations and are okay using the items and with the autocorrect, I think you could actually enjoy this game quite a bit. The puzzles are fun. The story is essentially non-existent, very generic. But for me, it was not worth it, and I give it a 2.5 out of 5. Murder by Numbers presents a more traditional Picross experience, but wraps a murder mystery visual novel around it. The story follows Honor Mizrahi, a recently fired TV detective who keeps finding herself at murder scenes. She also meets a robot named Scout, who is able to scan the area for clues, which he decodes through Picross puzzles. I was actually pleasantly surprised with this game, since I'm not really that big of a fan of visual novel type games. The art is great, the characters and dialogue are fairly engaging for the most part. The story covers 4 self-contained murder cases, but also has an overarching plot that slowly unravels over time. I think it was very well done. The music is also pretty solid, with a nice variety of songs that are played while solving puzzles and in the various overworlds as you're talking to characters and searching for clues. Now, sometimes the characters' reactions can be a little big, especially given what they're reacting to, and there's a large use of honestly questionable sound effects that can happen during conversations. But those barely detract from the overall experience. I did find the Picross puzzles themselves to be a little on the easy side. I never really ever felt stumped while working through them, but the more I think about it and about how integral they are to the story, I honestly think this is for the best. It allows the game to flow really well between the 2 genres that it's presenting. Just as you're getting tired of talking to people, learning more about them and the investigation, you get thrown a few puzzles to look because you have to look for clues. And then right as you're starting to be done with the Picross side and wanting to get back to the story, you do. It's pretty well timed and it flows pretty well. I think the team at Mediatonic did a real great job balancing the 2 genres within this game. Additionally, as you solve puzzles in each case, your rank increases and you unlock additional puzzles called Scout's Memories. Those are a little tougher than the ones that you interact with in the main game, however, again, nothing too exceptionally difficult. The game also presents a nice mix of Picross, with these hacking scenes where Scout tries to, you guessed it, hack something. Now here you're presented with a number of 5x5 puzzles, which normally would take about 5 seconds to do. These are very easy puzzles. But to make it a little more difficult, they only give you a limited amount of time to complete all of them. You're not allowed to mark the empty squares with an X, and you're penalized a few seconds if you mismark a square. It's pretty clever, and it actually does make these relatively easy, trivial puzzles a little tense and a little more engaging when solving, because you do feel that pressure. Now on the visual novel side, as you collect clues, you can then present them to suspects and other characters to learn more about the item, to reveal some secrets, or potentially even get a confession. I've heard others compare this game to the Phoenix Wright games and how all that plays out. I don't know, I haven't played Phoenix Wright, but I do enjoy how it plays out in this game. Really, my only complaint with this game is that the Picross controls can feel a little flighty. The cursor doesn't stop before wrapping around a row or column, for example, and I felt like I had to use the D-pad because the analog stick would move a little too freely around the puzzle. Also, scanning for evidence can get a little tedious, especially if there's only one piece left in the area. I think they could have increased the range on it a little bit and made it a little more user-friendly. Overall, Murder by Numbers is really a great game. What it lacks in the overall number of puzzles, it makes up for with charming, varied, and engaging characters. And while some of the twists are a little cliched or maybe even predictable, the writing and overall presentation make up for it. I had a blast working through all of the cases and never really felt like the narrative was dragging. I'd give this game a 4.5 out of 5. It's worth it at full price. I believe it's only $15 on the eShop. Definitely recommend it if you're a fan of visual novels. If you're interested or enjoy Picross, I think either side will enjoy this game. So what do you guys think? Do you like Picross games? What are some of your other favorite puzzle games or Picross games on other platforms? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Hit me up on Twitter, let me know what games you want to see talked about next, and I'll see you guys with the next video.